don't hand them on to this next lesson? And she's like, I don't know. And they're all at different places, so not every student's learning the same thing in the class, so she's not reading everything. Anyway, she ended up doing that, and then she blogged about it. And her blog was entitled Online Learning, a Wise Choice for Utah Schools. And in it, she identified that her school's using a digital learning program called Edgenuity. So if you hear your kids talking about it, go take a look at it. And it was interesting because I have a cousin in Arizona who I sent my blog, Susan's blog out, and my cousin that's a teacher said, oh, we're using that in my school, and I've been doing it with my students, and I had no idea, and I'm going to go look. But Susan basically identified the themes running throughout the English language section of Edgenuity, and she said it's all about just running through everything, fighting for equality and racism, against racism, fighting for feminism, environmentalism, promotion of video gaming, and an overall negative worldview. And she did talk to her administrators about it, but their solution was, well, when you feel it's appropriate, just insert conversation in the class. And she was saying, well, how can I interject conversation in class when every student's learning something different? I don't even know where they're at, and that would be awkward. It wouldn't even make sense to certain kids who aren't learning that, so it wasn't a viable option. So again, if you want to read Susan's blog, just email Barbara and I can send it to you.
Can I make a comment? I'm a retired third grade teacher from California. I've been retired 8 years, so I've been through the system for a while, and to see that they stopped me from teaching cooperative learning in the classroom. That's where the kids really get some higher level thinking skills and sharing of ideas and everything. It came down to teaching to the test, and so that we can be ready for the SAT test or whatever you call them here.
The ACT.
Yes, all that stuff.
Yeah,
I have been watching it happen.
It is
still trying to keep within my classroom the chance for real learning versus rote.
And that's why you could see why so many teachers are leaving, right? The teacher crisis, the teacher shortage, planned.
So they can bring in new blood to teach the way they want.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, now I want to go into this online course. Somebody contacted me and said that their student at UVU, who's a freshman, was made to take a federally required sexual harassment course online, and that once their child had gone into it and realized that there were only certain correct answers, and it wasn't about sexual harassment, it was all about other LGBT agendas. Student refused to take it. And then I was made aware this last week that a family member of mine was not allowed to graduate until they took this course. So I want to go through some of the screenshots of this. I don't know if you can see those words there. It says, talking it through, important definitions: LGBT, gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, straight, transgender, cisgender, asexual, intersex, polyamory, monogamy, abstinence, exploring sexual orientation and gender identity. How we act on our orientation and our gender identity may also change over time. And it talks about confined cliches. They're oppressive, can lead to discrimination and violence. Sexual Orientation 101. Everyone has a sexual orientation. Sexual orientation describes an individual's enduring physical, romantic, emotional, and spiritual attraction. Sexual orientation includes attractions to people of the same gender, people of a different gender, attractions to all genders, experiencing no attraction at all or anything in between. Exploring sexual orientation and gender identity. Sexual orientation is about our attractions to other people. Gender identity is about our internal sense of gender. Gender refers to a person's social cultural identity. Woman and man are two categories which carry certain social roles and expectations with them. What it means to be a man or a woman can differ greatly from one culture to another. Gender identity is how a person views their own gender, and gender expression is how a person acts out gender in society. And then you have to go through these gender stereotypes. You have to answer a certain way or you don't go all the way through. Confined cliches, they limit our identity and expression to a pre-boxed category of traits, hopes, and desires. The people we're attracted to and our internal sense of our own gender may be consistent or may develop over time. Gender stereotypes pose three main problems. They're inaccurate, because all men possess feminine traits and all women possess masculine traits. Gender's complex. Many people are starting to see the nuances. Corporations are too. For example, did you know that Facebook no longer asks users to identify as either male or female? They now offer 50 custom options for gender on your profile, including genderqueer, bigender, and cisgender. Yay!
What's this gender?
I don't even know. Does anybody know?
Were you saying that you had to answer a certain way to even finish?
Yeah, it's online, so you can't progress until you're answering a certain way.
And so you can't graduate if you don't.
Right. This is all part of Title IX. BYU and other schools have asked for an exemption. There was a big article, I think it was in the Salt Lake Tribune, with this national group that's now shaming schools like BYU and BYU Idaho that asked for an exemption out of this sexual harassment, other things about Title IX. But the frightening thing to me was how many parents really even know their students are. I've heard so many stories in recent years about, this is what my child totally believed all through high school, and they stood so strong, and they believed the family proclamation, and now they've gone to college, and now I don't know why they're totally on the other side, and everything they post on Facebook is this kind of stuff. Well, do we know what they're being taught? And they're being made to think that, hey, Facebook, they have all the answers, right?
You can't even graduate or move forward until you comply.
What does that say about...
We're using the economic man to force certain ideals.
Yeah, and we're getting to the point where, and it goes back to that talk from Elder Oaks and higher ed being a threat to religious liberty, we're getting to the point where what are we going to commit ourselves to? What are we going to be willing to do? Are we going to say, well, I've got to be part of the economy, so I guess we'll just be silenced. I guess we won't be part of the debate anymore because, we have to feed our families. I mean, at what point do we rally around as communities and say, you know what, we're not going to UVU, President Holland, fix this. We can't just go through the course and take it, because what's going to happen 5 years from now? Where are we going to be?
You guys, there are more young mothers and women downstairs in that other program that should be here. This group is so far ahead of the curve on what our issues are today that they're going to be called crazy. They're going to be called, just they'll walk away from you because you're so far ahead of the curve. Let me give you a little history. I'm from New Hampshire, where my country's constitutional foundation is in part of my bloodstream. I'm from New Hampshire. I was born there in the 1623 oldest community in America outside of colony. And I'm from Washington State. Washington State has the highest compulsory age state law in the nation. You do not have to put your child into school until 7, and most states are down at 4 years old. You started this program with Bill Gates. Bill Gates, I was part of the time when he married Melinda, and Melinda and Bill, their first joint effort was to take every 4-year-old in the state of Washington and put them into public school. They wanted to lower the compulsory age to 4, and they had the statistical data that 75% of our children under 4 were in childcare, and we need to have them in public school where we can be teaching them. What all of us here should recognize, those of us that are this age, right? We've seen the changes in education from how we were educated as to how our grandchildren are being educated. We have witnessed it. Now, I go back to, there again, I said I worked with Reagan as my governor and then my president. I was on the educational reform commissions that identified we were the nation at risk in 1980 due to the failure of our public schools. I just want to say that you can make a difference, because what we did to Bill Gates in Washington was that we went, just a few of us that were, there again, thought crazy. We recognized, because I had worked with Reagan in California, where the 70s revolution really took off, and the 70s revolutionaries targeted, again, my East Coast experiences, targeted, when they failed in the 70s revolution, they targeted the primary Ivy League schools of education and the #1 schools of university level in each state. And they put their people in those schools of education. That's why we have